me today is a fellow chaplain in the police department, also a police officer. His name is Bob Montalongo, and Bob is not only a policeman and a chaplain and a police officer and a dad. He's also a deacon in the Catholic Church, and he serves at St. Bruno Parish. Anybody here from St. Bruno? Here from St. Bruno? All right. Bob, give him a note. Who else? And who's here? Who do I know from BCA or Nativity? Raise your hand. All right. Terrific. Nice to be in such good company. Folks, we're going to talk about what Bob and I do as chaplains to police officers and to their families. But before I do that, let me ask you, just to feel you guys and girls out, what do you think Bob and I do as police chaplains? Anybody? What, in the course of the day, do we do to serve the police officers? Any guesses at all? Talk to them, yes, of course. That's probably primary in our ministry, is getting to know them, letting them get to know us a little bit, and reminding them that their work is God-ordained and is a ministry, a true service to the people of this city or wherever they happen to serve. Please, Joe, give them advice. We try to give them advice where we can. Sometimes they come to us because they're in a quandary, they're in a situation where they need maybe to feel someone out, maybe get some input from someone or an outside source. Maybe it's something they can't go to their local pastor with or to their spouse with because they maybe just don't feel comfortable unloading on someone who may not be familiar with their situation. Nobody's more familiar with what they go through than the police chaplains who are specialized in their ministry, especially our three chaplains like Bob. There's two others who are sworn police officers and ministers in their particular churches, and of course serving in our chaplaincy. Great. Our ministry in the police department is twofold. We do two things in the course of the day. One is crisis ministry. Any guesses what that means? That's when a police officer endures a crisis. Maybe they experience something at work that weighs on them greatly. In the introduction you heard that police officers see things in 8 hours or 10 hours, however long their shift happens to be, that you, God willing, won't see in a lifetime. They're stepping literally in pools of blood sometimes as they go into crime scenes, places where bad things have happened. They experience awful things, and they try not to take these things home with them, but sometimes that's an impossible task. So they need someone to bounce things off of and to maybe unload on it, and that is done in a safe environment when done with one of the police chaplains. Crisis ministry includes what else? How about when police officers get hurt? That happens very regularly. Bob and I and our other two chaplains are in and out of hospitals several times a week. Emergency rooms at places like Northwestern or St. Francis in Evanston, Christ Hospital out in Oak Lawn, Lutheran General, Park Ridge are all trauma centers where our officers are taken after car accidents, shootings. Sometimes they're maybe involved in a fight and they get a little scuffed up, so or more than a little scuffed up, so they end up quite often on their back in an emergency room. And unfortunately, we sometimes have to knock on that door and advise a spouse that their husband or wife has been killed in the line of duty. And that's never a fun task, but it's certainly something that we've unfortunately gotten used to doing, and I like to think do pretty well. So police work is unique in that a police officer can have a very mundane day and go to work and have nothing happen, and thank God that's often what happens, but they're always ready for whatever might come their way. One of the policemen I know who works at O'Hare, which is a pretty nice assignment, pretty quiet assignment. It's not like dodging bullets on the west side, maybe. They say, hey, I don't get paid for what I do, I get paid for what I might have to do. And that's very true. They always have the potential. They always have to be on high alert for that which is around the corner. So crisis ministry is one half of our work, and the other half is pastoral care. What's pastoral care? That's what I used to do very regularly as a parish priest. Celebrate Mass, celebrate the sacraments. I do that now with a Mass particularly for police officers that we have at Mercy Home, which is an orphanage on West Jackson Boulevard. and I celebrate weddings and funerals and baptisms for our police family. But I also, in pastoral care, do a lot of the counseling, the listening, the talking, the giving advice, that which is not unique to police work, not unique to police chaplaincy. That's done in parish settings, it's done in school ministerial settings, like Mrs. Vogel's office, Ms. Vogel's office. We perform that task unique to police officers. So maybe they bring different things to the table than one might experience in a parish. But certainly, excuse me, it's not much different than what I used to do when I was right down the street at Nativity of Our Lord. So those are the two functions. Who can tell me again? What are the two legs of police chaplaincy? Say again? Crisis ministry, wow. And pastoral care, right on. Very good. Gotta go. Next time you get pulled over, you show that notebook, you'll get out of anything. Some of you chose this session, maybe if you went to Nativity or BCA, because you recognized my name, I don't know. Some of you chose this session because it was toward the top of the list instead of the bottom, I don't know. Some of you chose this session over another session for other reasons. Can anyone tell me, is there anything today that you want to hear, that you want to get out of these 40 minutes we have together? Any questions you want answered? Any particular reason you chose this? Maybe because mom or dad are police? By the way, did we ask that? No.
No, we didn't. Who here, as parents, are police officers, mom or dad? Keep your hands up.
So those of you who have your hands up, you experience something that the others in this group don't experience, and that is you experience mom or dad getting home from work and trying to leave. Bob did a great illustration last session of what he does when he comes in from his day of work. Maybe not as much now that he's in the chaplain's unit full-time, but when he was fighting crime in Inglewood and in other tough parts of the city, he'd come home from work and do what now?
Well, I'm sure those of you who have their parents who are police officers have seen this, and it isn't just for the sake of being clean, but it's also for the sake of changing roles and who you are. But you've probably seen it. As soon as mom and dad come home, they'll step probably just into the front of the door, and right away shoes come off. I doubt you'll see, you might, but I doubt you'll see any police officer walk in and take the shoes that he has on the street anywhere into his home. I'm certain there is a lot of stuff on the bottom of your feet, but I think it's also a kind of a mental thing, where once we're coming in, and we'll probably take off as much as we can, our shoes, whatever we could take off, that stays, in a sense, almost trying to put that out of my home, because I've just entered into my home, and my home is a little different. I need to change my role. I need to, step away from where I was just at. So they'll do it. They'll do it for cleanliness. You don't want to track stuff in, and but it's also for that. Here, I'm stepping into another role that I am. Let me leave this one behind.
So it's symbolic as well.
And sometimes that gets blurred. Sometimes changing the roles is not done so well. And that's where we come in, to help them be able to change roles so you're not policemen at home,
I shared a story in the last session with the group about when Bob and I, every Wednesday we go out on the street for usually 12, 14 hours. We'll leave about noon together and we'll hit the different districts, get home at this past Wednesday, 3 in the morning. And we'll just go on radio calls and backup officers will then get to visit with them and be in their world, just to kind of get to know them better and let them get to know us better and let them know that we're out there. So we're in this home in a tough neighborhood where we were waiting for the fire department to arrive because this guy had been beaten up with a baseball bat. And we're standing waiting around, and I because I was tired, was leaning like this. And all of a sudden, Bob out of nowhere gives me a shove. He's like, whoa! And I'm like, what was that for? And I look, and on the wall, there's a big old cockroach coming down. He would have been right on my shoulder in about another second, so I'm thinking, Bob.
Ready to pounce on them.
Another reason, I suppose, when they walk through that threshold, that door, everything comes off, or at least shaken off. The symbolic side of that is quite, what's the word I'm looking for? It's significant. Because police officers live in three worlds. Those are, one, guesses, of course, home, perhaps the most important world, to be with you guys and gals. Second world, well, work is kind of two worlds. One is out on the street where you see them. The other is, that's I can include that in street time. The other is at Dunkin' Donuts, right? The other is in the department, in the structure, the hierarchy, the bureaucracy of the police department. Because police officers have to report to people, they have to answer to people. Just like your teachers here have to answer to the dean or the administration, and ultimately to your parents who pay their salaries, so do police officers. They have to deal with the public who pay their salaries, and they have to be on for them. They have to be friendly and accommodating to the public. Sometimes they have to be tough with the public, but more often than not, they're there to serve you, not to give you a hard time. The other part that causes even greater stress in dealing with the public, being out on the street, is dealing with the administration. Who are the administration? Police officers report to, what's the next level? Sergeants, very good. Get it open. Above sergeants? Lieutenants, very good. Who said that? Both said at the same time. Give me each half a vote. Above lieutenants? Very good. Captains in the corner. You're smarter than you look. And then you've got commanders above them, and finally you've got the guy who works on the 5th floor across the street. And his name is?
Jody Weese. He gone.
Someone said his last name.
He's gone.
He's gone. Who took Jody Weese's place? He's from New York, talks with a New York accent. Gary McCarthy, yes, indeed. Who said George Bush? So, guys, gals, let's regroup. These police officers, quit hitting on Bridget over there. These police officers, they have all these levels of command breathing on them, pushing them. We need you to write more traffic tickets. We need you to write more parking tickets. We need you to bring in more arrests, more curfew violations, whatever. Numbers are down. You got to bring them up. Whatever the pressure of the week is, these guys are feeling it because it all boils down to them. And they try to deal with that leg as well. So it's the public, it's the bosses, it's the family. There's three parts of this pie, and they are right in the middle and have to try to balance. And again, like Bob said before, we try to help them maintain that balance and to keep those thresholds, like the threshold of their house when they walk in the door, try to leave everything behind and start new at home, not bring the stresses of work to the home. Are police officers the only people who experience stress in their life? Of course not. No, there's all kinds of stressors that go into teaching. Dealing with you punks, Dave. Parenting. Your moms and dads experience a tremendous amount of stress. Paying mortgages and rent. Paying medical insurance and taking care of working full-time jobs and sometimes a second job to keep you happy and healthy. To send you to a great school. You could be going to a free school right now, but you're getting a superior Catholic education thanks to your parents' great sacrifice. What else? Every job. If you're a baker or a banker or a custodian in a school, those are all jobs that bring with them stress. But police work is just a slightly different form of stress because when you go bake for a living, yeah, you might cut your finger with a knife, you might burn your hand in the oven, but for the most part, it's a fairly safe job, done in a safe environment. And that goes for many of the careers that your parents have chosen. But those who are in police work are not always in a safe environment. And they are the ones who are running into situations where people of common sense are running the opposite direction. They go into trouble, like firefighters going to burning buildings, when even the rats are getting out of the building. It's the same thing with police officers. They go into situations that nobody in their right mind would even think of stepping into. Why? Because of that great love that they have. And it's a mentality that I'm going to ask Bob to expound on for a minute, of shepherding, basically. You mind?
Sure. And I'll say it at the beginning because you can look this up. It's a letter written by, he's a general, but if you put in Google of sheep, wolf, and sheepdogs, you come up and you can read a really great letter to explain police work, being a soldier, and just that. And in just that letter. And the analogy is you have the sheep, which are normal, everyday civilians, citizens who are law-abiding, who function in society and make our society the great society we have. And also, they're the wolves, the sociopaths, the guys who are out shooting kids, who are out on the streets shooting each other. And then you have the sheepdogs, which would be your soldiers and your police officers. First, they got stick with police officers, who are kind of like the wolf in that we share similarities. We can be violent. It's part of our job to be able to be violent because the wolf doesn't come, as a sheep becomes violent. So the sheep normally will trust the sheepdog. They'll have him around. They'll say, yeah, he's all right. He's not like the wolf who we hate. But usually when we become like it, when we become violent, the sheep usually kind of get rattled. And you've seen YouTube videos, I'm sure you have, where the officers are there and everybody's screaming at the officer because he's looking violent. And if you really look at him, that's all it is. They're seeing him being violent, and it's not something you like to see. But as a sheepdog, there's nothing more you want to do than keep your citizens, the sheep, if you will, safe. And it comes out of well, here's a good example. It's coming to my head. There was a girl, I think in California, that was being raped, and there was like 10 or 15 people just standing around watching it, and no one did anything. And that's what a sheepdog is. That's what a police officer is. The person who cannot stand to watch that going on, and they'll jump in. And how many of you here want to be a police officer, or ever thought of being a police officer? Well, I'll ask you again, and I'll give you no. But it's really good, and you're very brave. And here's why: because you have no idea what you're getting into, and you still want to do it. That's incredibly brave. Madeline. And so that, I lost my train of thought. I lost that. But no, it's who you are. You have so much love that you cannot see somebody else. Doesn't mean nobody else doesn't have love, but there's a part of you that tends to want to go to that. Maybe you've seen it from an example. I happen to know his father, and his father's a great police officer. And so he sees it by example. I'm sure those of you else who have parents as police officers, it's the same thing.
And the ultimate, who's the sheepdog, sir?
Oh, yeah, see, that's what I was going to talk. But ultimately,
it's all Madeline's fault.
But ultimately, the sheep and the sheepdog, the one thing they always turn to is the shepherd, and they obey the shepherd. We work for the shepherd, and the sheep look to the shepherd. It's Jesus Christ, and He's the one who we follow, and He's the one who we attempt to make our society, and further the plan He had for us to live in peace in this great place we live in.
All right, back to Bob's question, and keep your hands up. Who here wants to be a police officer when they get older?
You can get through.
And this notebook is not free, because I got a follow-up question for you. Why? In the corner.
Me?
Yeah, why would you like to be a police officer?
Well, honestly, I wanted a career in something in public service, and why a police officer? I know police officers aren't really as appreciated as they should be, but someone has to do the job out there. Someone has to be protecting the people, even though they might be respected. I'd like to be part of the group that is out there helping out the people, always serving them, ready to serve and protect.
Excellent. Well put. Well said. And you're right. They are often underappreciated. I pay your salary, or that Dunkin' Donuts joke. You know, they just sit at Dunkin' Donuts all day. Well, yeah. Sometimes you do see their cars outside Dunkin' Donuts because they get a 15-minute break during the course of 8 hours. They get a lunch and a 15-minute break.
A half-hour lunch.
And 2 15-minute breaks. So they might go get a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, who has the greatest coffee in the world. So you do see them there, and it's easy to make jokes about it, but they are certainly unappreciated or underappreciated.
Can I add
Please.
about Dunkin' Donuts? We were suckered because Dunkin' Donuts used to give us free coffee, so we all went. And as soon as we got hooked, full price now.
It's like a drug. Right? I guess it is. It's got too much caffeine in it. You also hit the nail on the head when you said about, cops, whatever, sometimes being an irritant to the public. And I want to piggyback on what Bob said about that whole sheepdog thing. Usually the sheepdog is there to protect the sheep from wolves and other aggressors. But sometimes the sheepdog has to go and nip the sheep a little bit and say, hey, you're out of line, and try to keep the sheep in order. And that's where they are a pest to the sheep. The sheep don't want the sheepdog to bother them. They just want the sheepdog to keep the wolves in bay. But we know, because some of you have gotten either parking tickets or maybe a speeding ticket or whatever, you know that sometimes they're there keeping the good people like you in line as well as keeping the bad people at bay. Yeah, fantastic answer, I thank you. Who else had their hand up a second ago? Please.
I don't know, I've always wanted to be a police officer, but recently, since it's my senior year and stuff, and been visiting colleges and stuff, I'm looking forward to that. I want to be something in that area. I really wanted to go be a detective. I want to do that, but then I watched cops and stuff like that, and I'm just I don't know, me and my partner, and I'm just thinking of I don't know, I just really want to do it. It seems fun, and I really want to be able to protect a lot of people and my community and serve for people too.
Good.
I want people to respect me. So.
Good for you. Good for you. And you've been a great police officer, I'm certain of that. We have here in Chicago a real diverse group of police officers. We have about 11,000 active, and they come from all different walks of life. I don't know percentage-wise how many are females, but we've got a whole lot of female officers. We've got black, white, Hispanic, Asian, American, you name it, every walk of life. Many different religions, although Catholic is by and large the majority, probably 3 out of 4 Catholic. And I think that's probably because so many, typically Irish, Polish, Hispanic folks are typically Italian, often anyway, Catholic. If not by practice, at least they were raised Catholic. So for that reason, half of our chaplains unit is represented by Catholic, Bob and myself, but we do have 2 other chaplains who are other denominations, also happen to be African American, and one happens to be a female. So we're a pretty diverse group too in our units, which really helps our ministry to the larger department. Before I go on to ask another 1 or 2 of you why you want to be cops, any questions, any observations, any comments from anybody? We only have about, 15 minutes left together?
Not even.
Okay.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here soon. Okay.
How many?
A couple minutes, 10:45.
10:45 or 55?
55.
Okay. So, no other comments, no comments, questions? Okay. The other hands that were up, yes, sir.
Well, just before, when you're finished with your next question, I was just wondering if one of you guys could share an experience of when maybe you were I don't know, thank God I'm a cop because I was able to help this person or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
You know what, since we're talking about chaplaincy, I think what I'll do is I'll share a story where you'll get the good feel of who the police officer is, if they're your parents, what your parents come home to, and you'll never know. They probably won't tell you, but it's there. And here's a story. I responded to suicide of a retired police officer. And I was there. He had killed himself on his back porch. And I was there. My family wasn't there at this time. They were coming. So I was there with the officers and everybody doing the investigation. And I was caught up doing something else, and I came around the back. And I'm thinking about it now, I can already feel it in me because it was traumatic for me. It was very traumatic. And I could imagine how much it was for this officer. She's an officer on the north side. And when I got back there, obviously with something like that, what's left is not pretty. Let's put it that way. And I saw something that was just incredible. It was up above and beyond her call of duty. She was cleaning because she knew that the family of this retired police officer, her brother, was going to come and see this. So when I saw
Not her blood brother, right? Her, you mean her
police
brother?
brother, police brother, I'm sorry. We call ourselves brothers and sisters. And she was cleaning garden hose. And I stopped, and I think my heart just collapsed at that moment. And I knew this is traumatic for her. She's going to carry this forever. This is going to affect her. She's not the same person anymore for what she's doing. And so again, I put a hand on her and we started talking. But there's an incident where what we do as police officers, you know, every officer that was there on that scene having to see this. And I think a good way to look at this for anybody who, either your parents are police officers, is great if your parents, or for anybody who wants to, like you see a police officer and you wonder about them, figure this wall here, and you can imagine any kind of incident. One of the jokes we say as police officers is, you know what, when we tell a story, it's like, we can't make this up. It's true. I mean, we couldn't make up a better story. It's all true. But just imagine any kind of story you can, you know, come up in your head, and if you will paint the scene, that traumatic incident on the scene like a mural, and then stand that police officer up in front, and you get a good indication of who your dad is, and who your mom is, and who all these police officers are who are out there. And I know it's rough. The stress, it still happens to me, and I'm a police officer. I'm driving, the police officer pulls up behind me. What have I done? What's going on? It happens. But that's kind of the story. I hope it wasn't all guts and glory, but it's a good indication of kind of what we do in chaplains and what we see and what the police officers are out there seeing today.
Bob mentioned suicide, and unfortunately in the police world, suicide is more prevalent than in the general population. Police officers are more inclined to take their own lives. And I don't say this to freak out any of you whose moms and dads are police officers. I'm sure your mom or dad are well adjusted, and this would never be an option for them. But unfortunately for some, it is. And like Bob mentioned, now that was a retiree. Sometimes they take that extreme route, and this is not unique to police work. As we all know, everybody in this room knows somebody who has, or your families know somebody who has taken their own life. And it's a horrible thing, and it's an extreme act done by somebody who's perhaps, you know, maybe not firing correctly on all 8 cylinders at the very time they do it. But for some reason, this line of work breeds folks is folks involved in this line of work are more inclined to go that way. So that is a big part of our ministry, to raise awareness and help prevent that from happening. We mentioned before crisis ministry and pastoral care, right? The 2 legs of the police chaplaincy. Crisis ministry is something that Bob did that day in that story that he just shared with you. It's something we do every time we're in and out of hospitals, emergency rooms, in and out of the morgue, unfortunately, because sometimes we have to knock on the door and advise a spouse that their police officer, husband or wife, has been killed in line of duty. And these are crises that involve our office on a very regular basis. The second leg, pastoral care, is something like what any parish priest or deacon or minister does on a regular basis. Ms. Vogel does it in her office here as campus minister. Your teachers to some degree, and the other counselors here, indeed, are ministers of sorts and perform pastoral care. And so do we on a different level to a unique audience or congregation with a unique set of circumstances. So those are the two legs: crisis ministry, pastoral care. We have 10 minutes now, maybe?
Yep.
All right, let's go back to the other, let's just one or two more. Raise your hand again if the answer was affirmative to Bob's question. Who else is thinking about being a police officer? Come on.
Just to help people, serve the community, give back. So, you know, I've seen what my dad does, not firsthand, no ride-alongs or anything like that, but I've heard stories, and it just sounds like something I'd like to do.
It's very often where children of police officers themselves then become police officers. I know a family, the name is ADE, where there are 5 generations. 2 are still active, the youngest and his dad, but then above them, grandpa, great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, all Chicago police officers.
Yeah, my grandpa was a police officer.
Really? So you could be the 3rd generation? And nothing would make your grandpa, if he's living, your dad more proud than to see you do that. Cool. And another one, behind.
Like my whole dad's side of the family, they're all police officers. My dad's a police officer as well, and I really like what he does and stuff, like how he like protects his community and stuff, and that like influences me kind of to do it. So
Great. Terrific. And next to you?
I wanted to be a cop because all the cops or the police officers I've met are always great people, and they just have that kind of personality to them and that kind of spark where they're just like, you just know they're great people and they're doing the right thing.
And chicks dig them. That's why Bob joined. That's right. Who can tell me who the patron saint of police officers and soldiers is? This is worth a notebook. Saint Michael the Archangel, very good. A couple of the other archangels are who? Gabriel? Raphael? Very good. Michael happens to be the... Yeah, not too many people do. People usually say Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. Very good. But Michael is particular patron to police officers and soldiers. Can you tell me why? That's okay. Thank you. You're about to learn.
Well, Michael, wasn't he the one that got asked to lead the army to defeat Satan?
Very good. Turn on that little card that was handed out. What is that? You see that image of St. Michael? What's he doing? Who's got the stack over here of leftovers, of extras? Okay, Ryan, will you give that to Bob here? Did I call you Ryan? Sean.
No, he doesn't have it. He just has one. He already gave it to me.
Oh, Connor, what's your first name? Sean. I always mix you up with your brothers. I apologize.
I'm not that tall. I'm not that wide.
You're not that handsome either, but so what's he doing?
He's killing a serpent.
You know I'm teasing, right? You're used to it. He's stepping on a snake, right? And who is the snake representative of? Of course. So he is one who conquered Satan. And what do police officers do and soldiers do in battle? They conquer their enemy, God willing, through the intercession of Saint Michael. And so oftentimes, in fact, if you were to ask mom or dad, who are police officers, or probably even any old cop on the street, if you were to ask to see the inside of their crown, their uniform cap, inside that uniform cap is a little sleeve, a little pocket, like plastic, like something you could put a business card into, or something a little larger than what would fit a business card. And what is probably in there is a holy card with St. Michael's image on it. I'll bet you 90% of our coppers, if you were to say, "Can I see the inside of your head?" they'd probably have something like this inside your head.
Or there might be a little prayer card that's cut to shape of the little pocket that's under your hand. It's got 2 hands like this and a police star in it. And it says, "Officer, know who you truly serve."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, that little caption, for those of you who earned a little notebook, look inside the flap. Open it up, kind of like a book of matches. And what's it say right inside the flap? Remember who you really work for. Right on. And who is that? The Almighty, God, of course. Jesus Christ, His Son. the good shepherd, as we shared about. So, all right, we only have now a few minutes left, so literally a few. Anything at all? Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever been through a crisis where you feel you can't get over it?
Where I can't. I do have not so much personal stories, not my own. I just don't think they're age appropriate. Yes. To answer your question in one word, yes. Can I share them here? Probably not. It wouldn't be appropriate. Because of the nature of what some of our guys and gals on the job see. I mean, really violent, awful, gruesome stuff. And yes, is it in their mind for the rest of their lives? They'll never move on. Like Bob said, and Bob left out a lot of details in his story, but that officer shot himself and did so in the head. Like he said, it wasn't a pretty sight. And not only was it blood, but you can imagine other organs, brain matter, really bad, ugly stuff that never leaves one's mind. That's as far as I'll go because I'd love to tell you more, but it just would not.
Here's another dynamic of it. One of the things that happens to us, and even if you do your job 100% correctly, and every police officer has, or at some point in their career, it'll happen to them, you are going to get sued for one reason or another. With your partners and everybody, you will get a lawsuit. And that was one that, this was before I was a chaplain, that, I don't know, this case went on for so many years, but even though I knew I wasn't right, I just had I was being sued and it weighed heavily on me. It affected my job performance, it affected my career, and I was really worried. And for many years, until it was over and we were exonerated, it ended and I was over it that way, but boy, I felt like I had this big anvil on my shoulders for a long time.
Those who have to use deadly force, those police officers who are forced to use their weapon, some of them kill, and they wear a special burden on their shoulders because you're not supposed to kill people. It's one of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill. What number is that, by the way? Very good. Have a notebook. When a police officer shoots and fires his weapon or her weapon and takes the life of an aggressor who maybe shot at them first, did they break that fifth commandment? No, absolutely not. Because when we read into the commandments, we know it's not you shall not kill. We kill. If a cockroach were walking up to me right now, I'd step on him. If a mouse were in the room, we'd hopefully set a trap and kill them because they spread disease, because they're not welcome. They don't pay rent in our homes. Out you go. But if somebody comes into your home and is a threat, yeah, you've got an obligation to kill. It's not murder. Use the difference.
The commandment really says thou shalt not murder. In the proper translation, instead of kill.
Close with a quick prayer, is that all right?
That was the end of session number 2. Students should begin to make their way to session number 3. Thank you.
Through the intercession of St. Michael, Lord God, we ask you to bless and protect each and every one of these young people. Bring them safely home this day and keep them safe in this wonderful environment here and throughout the course of their days. We ask you to bless their families who make great sacrifices to send them here to this fantastic school. And we ask you, God, to bless our police officers, those protecting and serving us in our streets this very moment. Bring them home safely at the end of their tour of duty. And all this we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen. May Almighty God bless you, Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Enjoy your day.